I would ask everyone to do something very special, which is to clap together. It doesn't really work that often, but it might not help me.
In the editing process.
Un, deux, trois.
These avocado and stuff on it. I'm just like, I just wanted baked beans on toast.
Okay.
Did she slice the toast perfectly and like present it all?
No, she just has the slab of
Herbs
bread.
and spices on top.
She actually does add herbs into the beans while
little.
she's cooking. I'm just like, no, it's already been flavoured.
With tomato.
Well, there's so much tomatoes in it.
Does she add like a little umbrella on top?
Do you want? No, but do you want to know something that I saw on like Instagram like a while back?
Oh no.
But it actually is a cursed video. Basically, somebody put baked beans
Oh no.
on instead of bolognese on their pasta.
I think that silence says it all, really.
That's terrible. It was just like. Have you ever seen the pasta guys that always have the cross when?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they basically did a video on it. They have this cross, and they're just like, anytime somebody does something really weird with pasta, they're just like, since they're Italian, they're just like shouting Italian with the cross.
But it's just a cross of spaghetti.
They've got a massive one as well,
Oh,
which
do
is
they?
like 10 foot tall. I don't know where
Of
they got that
spaghetti?
from. No, just a massive
Oh
cross.
right. Oh, okay.
They've like across the whole like so many cross sizes. At one point, they just kept getting bigger each video.
Fair enough. Anyway,
And on that bombshell.
and on that bombshell, it's time to start.
Woo!
I would ask everyone to do something very special, which is to clap together. It doesn't really work that often, but it might not help me.
In the editing process.
Un, deux, trois. Okay.
That
It's
was
just-
quite well done, I'm not going to
That
lie.
was
That was
brilliant.
very in sync.
Should we do it again?
No, just leave it at that. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Can't improve on perfection.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, we're
That's
just,
why we're here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to another episode of the Student Podcast, which has also been like subtitled as Bits by several viewers and guests on this show. This morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching or listening, because you might be listening, weirdos. No, that's insulting our viewership. I take that back. I apologize to our one listener, which is probably Harry Pickett. But
Thanks, Harry.
yeah, thanks, Harry. Yeah, thanks for listening. Anyway, yeah, would you guys like to introduce yourselves? Because I have no way of like really starting these things still, even after all this time. So, who are you?
That was very intense. Hi, I'm Chris. I don't know, I'm 20, from Northern Ireland, do primary teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about it. Not very interesting.
Yeah, for those, it's probably not very interesting, even though, especially since you've already been here several times before.
Multiple times before. Felt like deja vu when I was saying that.
Yeah, I think that like the first time you were on, you're like I think you were like wearing a hat and like a green hoodie. You were still wearing shorts though.
Oh, always.
Yeah, always. But now I think everyone's wearing shorts because it is absolutely roasting outside.
Yeah.
And speaking of roasting, who are you?
Hello, I'm Thaddeus, or Tad. Tad is much easier because Thaddeus is a bit complicated.
It is.
It is. Most people seem to kind of not really get their head around it, which is funny. I'm studying film studies. Which camera do I look into?
Whichever. That one
That
is
was
kind of
probably
focusing on the pair of you,
Okay.
and this one is on
you.
all of us.
Okay.
See,
No
I-
one wants to look at me and just me because
Just you. Yeah.
why would
Yeah.
they? Anyway.
I like just to eye up the cameras every now and then. You know,
Just
make
don't
sure they're
look.
still listening.
Yes.
I'm a first year film studies student, and I'm from Sheffield. originally,
Oh,
which is
Originally.
in England.
Have
Yeah.
you moved?
You've-
Well, I'm currently living at Edgehill.
fair enough.
Fair.
So I brought these two gentlemen in here today to discuss university life in a way where we talk about the classroom. Because the classroom obviously is a very big and important part of being at university. It's kind of the reason why we're there. But being in class isn't always the wonderful, absolutely fantastic experience that it's often told to us to be. Did that make sense? Probably not. But you'll get it eventually, next year. Oftentimes, we don't learn as much as we usually would hope, or what we are told often is either confusing, doesn't make sense, or is sometimes wrong. So that's kind of where I wanted to start off with. But before we kind of question you guys about your experiences in the classroom to do with learning and things like that, do you guys have any stories of like interesting or funny experiences that have happened to you in the classroom? If you don't, then I can always start off with one or two of my own. They're not necessarily funny, but they're a little bit weird.
None is kind of sprung to mind immediately, but
Mm.
on online classes,
Yes.
we get split up into kind of breakout rooms
Mm-hmm.
where we're supposed to like discuss the questions that we've been given, which no one actually turns their microphone on for or
Mhm.
camera, so it's just like a 10-minute break instead of actually discussing the work because no one's actually done it as well, which is always
Mhm.
really helpful.
Yeah.
Nice. And how does that make you feel?
It's kind of great because we get a break in the middle of a 2-hour seminar.
So yeah, so it doesn't really bother you that like, do you do the work
Yeah, for the cameras.
for the cameras? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, I do the work.
Mm-hmm. He's just saying
Let's just say that, yeah.
Mm.
Most of the work.
What about you, Chris?
I can't remember if I had any last year, but there was one time this year I was on an online class for history, and basically we were like halfway through it, and all of a sudden this random person just joined under some like fake name. I can't remember what the fake name was, but it was like one of those fake joke names, and basically just like kept asking the lecturer, "Are you okay?" and then the lecturer's name, and he was like, "I'm confused by this," and like our head of year was also just sat in the class, and she was just like, "What's going on?" Of course he's okay. And they kept saying, "Are you okay? You look really sad," and like all of us were just sat there like, who is this person? It just randomly popped. Like there was like 30 of us in the class, so it was like, it wasn't like a full on lecture. It was like we're in our seminars, and we were like, who is this person? Because we know who everyone else is in it,
Yeah.
and it was just this random person, and they kept saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And none of us found it funny, but that person found it hilarious and was putting messages in for about half an hour. No clue what was going on.
Okay, that's interesting.
It was one of the weirdest experiences I've had in an online
Fair enough.
class.
But also, like, just following on from what Thaddeus has said, do you get like those 10-minute breaks and like where no one talks or anything?
Oh
like
yeah,
that?
breakout rooms, yeah, classic. Go into that, nobody speaks, and then you come back and they're like, okay, let's feedback from our breakout room, and you're just hoping that somebody in your group randomly wants to just make it up on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time that was me, because I'm quite
Mm.
good at just rambling, so I just say something random, and
Mm-hmm.
the lecturer would feel sorry for me and be like, yeah, good try, Chris, good try. I'm just like, yes.
That was me.
Stick a few big words in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember I was we had a technology or design and technology class one morning, and I wasn't really paying much attention because it was
Mhm.
like 9:30 in the morning, still half asleep, just sat in the living room in my pajamas, just just dead.
As you do.
And basically he was asking like direct questions to people,
Oh no.
and I was just like, he asked me, no clue really what he was on about. But I just started like saying, "Oh yeah, from my experience of doing A-level technology," and I just waffled my way through it for about 5 minutes, basically saying whatever I could about what I'd learnt in A-level, and he was just like, "All right, very good. That's really interesting," and I'm just like,
Smooth.
And Manny was Emmanuel for those. I don't know, just say Manny, but he was just sat at the other side of the room, just laughing because he just saw me just like talking rubbish for about 5 minutes straight.
Well, at least he bought it.
I know. I know.
No, that was basically me from first year to third year.
Yeah.
I was very lucky not to have any online classes, but I remember in my third year, for one of my classes, I won't name the lecturer or the class I was in because that might narrow it down, but there was one particular lecturer who was very, let's say, interesting. He was a little bit odd in the sense that, he would show us clips of something on the internet or from a movie or something. It was relevant, trust me. But whenever he would do that, he would like get the remote for like the projector or for the laptop or the computer or something, and then he would stand across the room in a very strange way. He wouldn't sit down and watch it with us like that, but he would kind of stand to our listeners. He'd like stand with one arm like trying to lean his chin against his hand or something like that, and like lean against the windowsill. But he would never get comfortable, so he's constantly like shifting like positions, and so it was very distracting. We're trying to watch something, and there's this guy just like shuffling in his jeans and his jacket, and and he would also like some occasionally like really random inappropriate moments. I remember one time, I think because just like my schedule worked out really weirdly. So I had like this class and then I had another class straight after it, but I was very hungry, as I usually am, including right now. Yeah. So I hope we finish early, you know. And yeah, maybe we should have a break, guys.
You can just watch us eat for 10 minutes.
I do actually have food.
ASMR.
Anyway, we're getting off topic, but I'm like sitting there eating my sandwich, and he asked like this question to the class in general, and I can't even remember what the question was, and then he's like, "Does anyone want to answer that?" And then he looks at me and he says, "What about you, pretty boy?" I'm like, huh? With my sandwich, like, I can't even remember if I answered it or not. I was like, I was not taken back, and I think I like shuffled my chair away from him just a little bit, because like, is that appropriate? But anyway, that was one of my stories. Yeah, he was very interesting. Always like moving about, shuffling, trying to look natural posed. It was not working for him. Yeah.
We had this lecturer last year who, since there's like 300 people on my course, she would just like randomly walk behind, like up and down the aisles, and like randomly sit next to people in the lecture theatre to make sure they weren't just like doing whatever they wanted on their phone or something. And basically there's this girl one time, he must have been like, she was just sat like looking on like for like shopping one day, and she was just like for about 5 minutes was stood behind her without her knowing, just watching her scrolling through like one of those, like, I don't even know what shop it was, but and then like she just like literally called her out in the middle of the whole lecture hall, and I was just like, sucks to be you.
You know how they should have done it? It's like, if they're like scrolling through like looking for like shopping or like clothes or something, they should, oh yeah, you should have picked that one. You should go that one. That would have been funny. That would have been funny. It'd be even funnier if they actually bought it and then wore it to like class the next
next week, yeah.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Should have done that.
We can always like write a comedy show where that happens. just to accommodate that, just that thing.
Yeah, what would we call it?
Bits.
New look.
New look. Oh. That might get copyrighted.
Yeah. We'll just bleep that out.
Look. Just be like,
random clothes company.
Peak Ox. That can be taken any direction. Anyway, I wanted to ask you guys, how much, since you guys have gotten to university, and I know from my personal experience that I learnt a lot more outside of the classroom by myself or from other people than I did from inside the classroom. Whether it's to do with like knowledge or understanding of something, or even just writing essays and stuff like that, I found a lot of it on my own, and I know that from other people that they've also had that experience. How was it for you guys? So Thaddeus, how has it been so far?
It's been very much on my own. Everything's kind of been research based, and a lot of reading, a lot of watching the online material. So obviously I haven't had the experience of having purely face to face.
Yeah.
So everything's been on like recorded lectures and seminars, and then having like one face to face session a week, and that's all kind of discussion based. So I've not really learned anything in the classroom at all. It's all just been kind of consolidation in a way.
Yeah, fair enough.
So all the stuff that I've learned has been stuff that I've done on my own, watching the material, reading around the subject, and yeah, because film studies is also, for those of you that don't know, it's also a lot like English literature. We're watching films and then analysing them in the context that they were made and things like that. So it's a lot of like analysis and learning from other people's analyses. Is that a word?
Analysis.
Multiple analysis. Learning from other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of that comes from like reading and yeah.
Do you prefer it that way, or would you prefer there to be more of a kind of centralized learning kind of system where you get more stuff from the classroom? Because after all, that is what you're paying for. Is you're paying for. I've heard like people say, "Oh, you're spending 3, maybe 4 years, and spending thousands upon thousands of pounds just to get a piece of paper and some letters after the end of your name." But do you prefer it being like that, it being quite independent, or would you prefer a more hands-on approach from like lectures and things like that?
I just need to cough. But I didn't want to interrupt you.
That will be edited out. He doesn't have COVID, people.
No.
It's just cooties.
It's just joking.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
I know, he doesn't need the help with the lectures, he just needs to cough.
Yeah.
And he'll be fine.
Yeah. I certainly prefer a more hands-on approach. Although doing stuff independently does have its benefits, because in like a feedback situation, obviously people can like take that for themselves, so they can take the work that you've done for themselves for their own benefit. So in that sort of way, it does prevent that. But equally, if they haven't done the work, then they're not going to benefit a huge amount anyway.
Yeah.
So I definitely prefer a more hands-on approach. But as well, that might be my kind of learning style in a way, if that's a thing.
Yeah.
I prefer to be kind of creative and like hands-on.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? How have you found, especially since you know what it's like to have in classroom meetings, what's like the difference for you switching to online? Because you've also had quite a big classes, because obviously primary teaching is quite big at Edge Hill, because it is one of the big things.
Yeah.
And so there would have been less kind of attention paid to each individual student anyway. How has it been like switching over to online? And also the same question that I asked Thaddeus, like, do you prefer being more independent or?
Yeah, there's a massive difference between in-person class and online. Like it's night and day, to be honest. I'm not a fan of the online stuff myself. I'm very, if I'm not there in person, I'm one of those people that I can find 50,000 different things to do than listen to that lecture that's on in the background, kind of thing. So, yeah, I've just struggled, and like, to be honest, the the amount of information you're getting and the way it's being delivered is not as good as it once was. It being online. With it being online, it's just getting dumped at you,
Yeah.
and you're just being told do whatever you want with that kind of thing. It's
Right.
while last year it was more structured, we had more. Obviously, being primary ed, a lot of our classes are very set out in a way which you could use that then when you're teaching yourself. So like we had science and stuff, which is all very hands on. Even our English and our maths was very hands on. We would basically learn like we want to teach the kids. So basically for like stuff with maths and English, we would do activities which would be similar to the way we wanted to do it. So we'd have pictures which we would annotate with for English, or for maths we'd have counters, things like that. And so we're obviously missing out on all of that. So we're missing that hands-on experience that we were getting last year.
Yeah.
We're not getting this year, where it's basically like they just tell you this is what you need to do, but you're not really remembering it as well, because you're not doing it. I'm one of those people that if I want to remember something, I have to do it, or I have to see it firsthand, for it to kind of sink in with me. So, yeah, that's the difference between online and in person. And then with independent or more hands-on, I'm very hands-on. It's the way I learn. Independently, like I'm not that kind of person who can just sit down and read for hours on end and take in all this information. I have to kind of process it in a way where I do it with like the teacher or whatever, like they're wanting to tell me, like whenever I'm able to act it out or do that task which they want us to learn, then I'm able to remember it. I'm able to understand that information then. So like with computing last year, we did all that stuff, so like Scratch and stuff like that, we would learn that by doing it. Well, this year we were just learning it by being taught kind of what we had to do. And honestly, I don't really remember much from this year, while I still remember all my stuff from last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very much like Tad, like hands-on. And like it has made it more difficult this year to understand it for me, just because most of my understanding has come from just doing essays and assignments.
Yeah.
Where I'm having just to read up on it. But it's also been made very difficult, especially with primary ed this year, because they're very vague with what they want us to do for our assignments. So it's like,
yeah,
they just kind of give you like a title, that's it basically, and they're like, this needs to go in this section, this needs to go in that section, and you are the one who's having to find every single part of the content, find your own stuff. So what you might be learning might be something completely different to somebody else, just depending on what you've found. So I don't think that's been very useful this year, to be honest. But I've learned a lot more outside of class this year than I have in class. That's obvious because I've had 5 weeks of placement. At this point I'll have 8 weeks by the end of this year, where you learn basically everything in placement. Like they're not lying when they say you learn far more in placement than you ever will in class. Like I've learned more in the last 5 weeks than I have probably in my whole first 2 years of uni, just because you're actually, that stuff you were learning, you're able to actually understand it, because you're like, okay, I'm dealing with this child, they're doing this like standard of work, I know the knowledge of how to improve it, but now I'm actually having to put it into practice, and then you're understanding how you use those concepts to improve their learning, kind of thing. So, and like, because like earlier in the year we'd just been doing like learning styles and stuff like that, how children learn, but you don't really know how you're going to use it until you actually get out there and you're like, okay, now I can see those are the high standard kids, those are the lower standard kids, I know how they learn compared to them, and you now start to realise how things, which I think was quite difficult coming into the second year, where like a lot of our assignments were made for people who would have had experience. I only had 2 weeks experience last year, so I didn't get that way of where I was able to just understand all that knowledge I'd learned. So I kind of went into this year writing essays not really understanding what I'd done the previous year really. So yeah, but I've learned far more outside of class than inside.
Yeah, you kind of narrowed down to like what my follow-up question was going to be, but I'll get back to you in a second with that. But Thaddeus, this is actually technically a question for both of you. But what would you say has been the most important thing that you guys have learned outside of the classroom, by yourselves, this year? because you were talking about even like the difference between how like these certain groups of people work. I thought
Mhm.
that's actually pretty important because then
Yeah.
you can tailor everything.
Yeah.
But and you also mentioned a couple of other things, but that was one of the things that stood out to me.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll get back to you, Thaddeus. You have no time to think.
No. I guess it sounds really cliche, but I've learnt a lot about myself and about how I learn.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chris, I don't like reading much. I don't like sitting down and doing work. I also procrastinate a lot, which is
Mhm.
terrible. Leaving things until the last day,
Mm-hmm.
which gets you in a lot of sticky situations.
Yes.
I remember one specific time I had in my mind, because I don't plan at all, I had in my mind that this essay was due, well, this presentation was due on the 14th, and it was actually due on the 4th. And I opened my emails on the 5th from my lecturer.
Oh no.
And my lecturer said, have you had any issues uploading your presentation, because I haven't found it. And I hadn't started it at all. So I had to panic do this presentation on the 5th and the 6th late.
Oh.
And so that was a learning experience for me, definitely, which I think is one of the really valuable, something really valuable about first year is that it doesn't contribute to your final grade, because I'd be pretty screwed if it did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've learnt a lot about time management and kind of how I learn and what I need to do to actually be able to be productive. I'd say.
That's a good lesson to learn.
Mhm.
What about you, Chris?
Probably a very similar thing actually. Like I think you've had to learn about how you personally learn this year. Like you've just been like thrown into an unusual situation where you either have to sink or swim, and so you're forced to kind of find out what way you learn best. I'm very like Tad, where last minute. But the thing probably I have learned the most this year, probably, I don't know, it probably has just been understanding how I work best, what conditions I need to actually do good work, because I am very, I'm probably, I don't think many people can procrastinate like I can. I literally will put everything off if possible, but I've now started to learn probably this year how to counteract that.
Yeah.
While in first year I hadn't, with having freedom and stuff.
Yeah.
I had so many things to do. I like the amount of times we just went, oh, let's just go to Spoons, and I'd be like, oh, I have an assignment in 2 days' time which I haven't started yet, but yeah, sure, let's go. While this year I haven't had that freedom, so I've learnt how to probably time manage a lot better. And obviously being in school the last 5 weeks has actually helped that a lot itself, because I have to have lesson plans in with my mentor 2 days before I'm teaching them, so I'm always having to be on top of that.
Yeah.
And being prepared, because there's been days when there was one time 2 weeks ago where I'd planned my lesson way in advance, thought I'd sent off my lesson plan, and like came that morning, she was like, oh, have you done that lesson plan are you teaching maths today? I was like, yeah, did I not send you the plan? And she was like, no, and I was like, oh no. So it's kind of, I've learned just how to manage my time. I'm a person who, I don't write things down, everything's up here.
Yeah.
And usually that works out for me because I have quite a good memory. But obviously every now and then some stuff can slip, I can make a mistake, and it's just, I've learnt now just how to be prepared. So I'm off for half term at the moment, but I know I have, I think it's 14 lessons next week. So I've already done half of them at this point, and then I want to start them next week, even though I've been very lazy this half term. I wouldn't, like Chris a year ago probably would have started them at the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's nice just being on top of things, and that's what I've kind of learned, just how to be on top of things.
I find that very interesting, because my lessons that I learned, I don't think I've learned very much in my second year, to be honest. I learned quite a few things in third year about working. This sort of same thing you guys have been talking about was how to kind of manage my time a little bit better. I did that in third year a lot better than I did in first and second year. Um, yeah, I learned it last minute. I think what really hit the nail on the head for me was whenever I was writing my dissertation at kind of the end of third year, and then also because of COVID as well, I had to really, really manage my time. COVID for me was kind of a blessing in disguise because if I didn't have the extensions that COVID provided, I would have struggled very much to actually get all my assignments done. Um, but some of the reasons why that was happening was actually tied into something that I learned in my first year, which is that I didn't particularly trust my lecturers.
Yeah.
Which for some people is like a terrible thing. Some people it's a very liberating thing. I know some people who work very well because they don't trust them, and so I didn't particularly trust them because uh, I learned a lot more outside of the classroom because a lot of the content in the classroom that we were being taught I didn't agree with, and was very forcefully put on people, and made people quiet to their own opinions that they didn't feel they were willing to share, and it was a lot of the stuff was hammered home, and so that was my kind of takeaway from first year, and I didn't learn to manage my time very well until the last minute, which I suppose isn't great time management in the entirety of my university experience. But yeah. Have I missed anything? Is there any questions you guys have for me, or do you guys have any sort of places that you go because you aren't getting everything you need from your lessons? Is there any places that you guys go to find more information that is easy to digest or easy to take in, or to get the information that you do need that like, oh yes, that makes so much more sense?
Yeah. For me, it's just YouTube, to be honest.
Mhm.
If I'm like, I am somebody who learns very visually and auditory, so I try and find things which I can either watch or listen.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I'll just tell the story. For my GCSE history, I basically, for all the, I think we had World War Two and something else, and I literally just watched tons of documentaries on that, and that's how I learned everything. Yeah, for my GCSE history, I just, we had World War Two and something else, and for me to learn it all that content, instead of just sitting and reading, we had like booklets of stuff that I could have read. I didn't read that, but instead I just watched documentaries which I knew linked to those topics, and that's how I learned all my facts, all my dates, the events, everything. And so I kind of take a similar approach with my teaching stuff. So I'd like, for like, even for when I'm on placement, if I don't know a topic that I'm meant to be teaching them next week or something, I just watch a clip, like a quick video on it, and just remind myself what it's about, just so that I'm able to have the knowledge to teach them it. But for like we do a lot of learning theories and stuff in primary teaching, so if I don't really understand what they want me to know about those kind of like learning theories and stuff, I'll just watch like YouTube just to and I'll just literally type in the learning theory I'm confused about, and a ton of videos will come up. So I always just find that useful, just for that, or else even just the Catalyst has a ton of books as well, especially with primary ed, like it is a massive subject in the uni, so the catalogue for this, all that stuff is huge, so I can even just go on, not even having to go into Catalyst, but just go on the online bit and just type in a certain topic, and all the books come up, and I'll have a quick read through those articles and just try and understand it a bit better. But yeah, it's always good to understand what you're about to write. I know this sounds stupid, but it's good to understand what you're going to write about before you write it, because I found that my worst essays and my worst results in my essays came when I didn't know what I was writing about and I didn't understand it.
I was the same, actually.
Well, if I go into it knowing, okay, I know this topic, I understand what I'm going to be writing about, I understand every part of it, then at that point you're just having to figure out how you're going to structure it and what references you're gonna have
Mm-hmm.
because you already know the content. So
Yeah.
I know that's self-explanatory, but I know for tons of them I haven't went in knowing it. So
Mm.
learn from that.
Mm. Yeah. What about you, Thaddeus?
I'm quite lucky that film studies is a subject where people like to do it as a hobby as well
Yeah.
as study it like analytically.
Yeah.
So on YouTube as well, there's a lot of kind of sofa critics
Mm-hmm.
and people who like to do it for fun, which sounds really nerdy, but is a really great resource because we do 4 modules kind of simultaneously, and each week there's a new film for each module to watch. So
Mhm.
that's 4 films a week that we have to watch, which is about 8 hours. So if I'm stretched for time, then I can always look up on YouTube a kind of synopsis video
Mhm.
that someone has already watched the film, and they love the film. They've made a video on the film, so I can kind of know the film without watching it,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
which is a great resource as well.
Yeah.
And also people analyze the films on their YouTube channels,
Yeah.
Fair enough.
which is really helpful as well. So YouTube as well, to answer your question.
That's good. YouTube is a very good resource.
Yeah.
Not so much for literature. I mean, it does have some good stuff, but I think for you guys, it's
Yeah.
probably a bit more useful. So yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming. You've been very informative, especially about YouTube.
We love YouTube.
Good YouTube.
Learn more
Watch
from
YouTube.
YouTube than from our lectures, apparently.
That doesn't surprise me. And on that note, it is time to end. Thank you so much for listening or for watching. Have a great time. Hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.
Bye bye.